Welcome to the AirBim video installation. To begin, we're going to start on the port side or the passenger side. On the starboard side or driver's side, I need to make sure I have my support arm up and locked in place while doing this. You want that side locked in place while doing this installation. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin by lifting up your rail, and then obviously your other support arm is holding the bimini system up at this time. The next step, we are going to take this bolt out and this bottom bolt out, and we're going to start with the bottom bolt. The top bolt I'm going to show you has a backside, and these bolts require T30 sockets, and we're going to remove those, and we're going to save them because we're going to reuse them on the mount. All right, to begin, I'm going to loosen the outside bolt and take that out as I showed before, and then we're going to use a T30 socket, or you can use two T30 sockets. I'm using a T30 socket and then a T30 Allen style wrench, because there's a T30 on this side and a T30 on this side, and we're going to remove that bolt, and I will show you that next. Okay, so I removed the lower bolt from the outside, which is a longer style bolt, and then I'm going to remove this bolt, which I've loosened up, and this bolt is a smaller bolt. Now the trick here is this bolt, the arm bolt, this slides through, and we're going to, in order to put the mount on, we're going to reverse the bolt so it slides in from the inside, and it will rest on the inside edge of the mount here. So what we want to do is we want to take our mount and we're going to insert the ball stud and tighten that down, or you can wait until you have it mounted and do it. Either way works. This will go on the outside, and then we're going to take our upper mount bolt and slide it, as I mentioned before, slide it in from the outside. And then we're going to take our smaller screw and thread that in. And when you're threading it in, you just want to get it started. We don't want to tighten it at this point until we get both bolts in. So I have that one in. And now I can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to snug up the bottom, and then I'm going to snug up the top. And then once I have them both snug, I can tighten them. All right, now that I have my lower mount installed and tightened down, I have my ball stud on. What I'm going to do now is I extended the bimini backwards, and on the other side, I've locked that in place. On this side, we're going to bring it all the way up, and we're going to give this a little tap so we can pull that back and put our upper mount on. You could use a little hammer, a small hammer, and give it a tap here if you want. I'm going to use the palm of my hand, but you want to make sure as you tap it down low, you don't want to hit anywhere up in here. I'm just going to give it a hit like that, pops right off, and now I can get at my mount. I'm going to remove this mount and then show you how to install the mount itself. Okay, so now we're going to work on our upper mount, and included in your kit is the gasket. And we're going to take this gasket and we're going to bump it as tightest to the weld as possible. We don't want it up high on it like this. We just want to bump it up against the weld. And then what you want to do is you want your gasket about in the center of your arm rail, and you're going to bring this around and you're going to put them together like so. And then what I'm going to do here, this kind of gets a little tricky, but you got to hold your gasket. Then we're going to take our mount with this side on the outside of the boat, and we're going to slide it up, and we're going to get it in line so it's equal with the gasket, and I have this upper part going in, and then I can take my top mount and slide that on and then start a bolt. And what I want to do is I'd start a bolt and get it so your mount doesn't fall. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get all of them started and snug. We're not going to fully tighten each individual one. We're just going to get them snug, because when we tighten, we want to tighten in a cross pattern. So I'm going to tighten this one, this one, this one, and this one. And we're going to continue to do that until this gap on the inside and the gap on the outside is fully closed. You should not see a gap there at all. So before you snug this up, before you tighten it down with using the cross pattern, you want to make sure you have about an 1/8 inch gap between the edge of the mount and your support arm mount here. You should have about a gap like about an 1/8 of an inch. All right, so next I'm going to put my ball stud on, and I'm going to put it through the ball stud hole here with my lock nut, my nylon lock nut on the inside, and I'm going to tighten that down with a 13mm wrench and a socket on. All right, so the next step, we're going to put our strut on, and there'll be an AirBim logo on it, and you want the logo facing the outside, and you want your strut orientation with the base of the strut up near the lower mount. To do this, all I have to do is put it on the ball stud and give it a little pop, and then we're going to put the strut on the upper mount ball stud. And to do this, I need to overextend my bimini a little bit. So I'm just giving it a little lift, and then I'm going to press that on. Now we have the strut assembly on, and we'll continue to the next step. So the next thing I want to do is I want to test the lowering and the raising of the system. I still have my support arm locked in place. What I'm going to do now is I have my strut assembly on. I'm going to come over here and remove the support arm. Now the AirBim will hold it, or should hold it with one strut, but you may want to have an extra hand, or you want to be very careful over here when you're releasing your arm. I'm going to do this by myself, so I'm just going to release this arm, and you'll notice that it's currently holding with just this, but you do want to be very careful that it does not come down. Also, I have this arm locked in, and what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to leave this one off for now. I'm going to lower the system, but be careful, that is going to fall forward when I do that. But I don't want to lock it back in because I have another step that I have to complete in this area. So I'm going to lower the system right now, and I need, when I'm lowering it, I want to lower it very, very slowly. I'm just coming down super slow, and I'm guiding it and holding it up with my hand at this point. And I want to let it rest on the mounts, and what I wanted to show here is you're going to have a slight gap in there. And that could be, as long as you're not hitting, you're okay, but you could be, gap should be about an 1/8 inch gap, or maybe a little less. And the reason I have that gap there is because I've put my 1/8 inch gap here. Now if this was moved over just a little bit, you're going to have a little larger gap here, which is fine. As long as it's not touching and crushing the base of this, we're okay. All right, so next we're going to take a 5/32 drill bit, and we're going to drill into the center hole provided. And there's another one underneath. We're going to drill into the center of that with the drill bit. So what I'm going to do is lift this up, and I'm going to drill a very small hole here in the top. There's a pre-drilled hole for you already, and all we got to do is drill a small hole in the rail here for the set screw. I'm going to lift this back up, and I'm going to repeat this in the pre-drilled hole on the bottom. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to switch to a Phillips head. And using our set screw, we're going to put the set screw in here, and we're going to put a set screw on the top part of the mount. So there's 2 set screws for each side. And what I want to do is I want to get that up there, and I want to get it snug, but I don't want to over tighten it either. You could break the bolt, you could break the screw, but you'll feel it stop, and you also don't want to strip the screw head. So then I'll put my other set screw in here, and we'll be all set. Okay, I have my set screw on top. What I want to do now is I want to come down here. I'm gonna put my locking arm plastic piece back in place, and to do that, I'm just gonna put it on that part and push down on my thumb, so we're locked in. So we have our mount set. We're all tightened down on the outside, and we are going to repeat that process on the starboard side or driver's side. Again, I wanted to note that I did snug up these bolts a little bit, so this does not drop down, and it's kind of snug, so it stays where I want it to. Because when this is being lowered, I'm just going to lower this with one arm here while I'm filming, but as you can see, the lowering process is very simple, and I do have a very small gap here, and that's important. Okay, so we have this one side completed, fully completed. We have our mounts in, set screws on, everything's fully tightened down, everything's back in place. What we want to do is we want to go to the other side and repeat this process. One thing I wanted to mention, the AirBim is not intended for use without your support arms locked in place. When boating, you should always have your support arms locked in place. When you are getting your boat ready, it'll lift up nice and easy, and when you're working on your boat, you could leave it, it will hold it up perfectly fine, but it is not intended to not have your support arms locked in place while boating.